Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series, Interviews with Aurovilians. And again, we have Holger, my beloved friend, on music. Now, I would like to begin this with some of the things I have learned in the Om Choir. When I first started seeking this new music, I met with various groups, 4 or 5 people, 7, 8 people. We would read a beautiful poem and we would improvise musically on that poem. It was very beautiful. Stephen Spender, for example, and his wonderful poetry. Rumi, of course, and many others. But 20 years ago, I had an Adesh. Only Om. And I wrote to Mother and I said, Mother, would it be advisable to use your organ, for example, which was available at that time? Mother said, better not, only the voices. So I began the Om Choir about 20 years ago, and it's grown a lot. I'd like to explain a little bit about it to you, how we actually begin this Om Choir. The first part of the evening is helping people to understand and grow in the body consciousness. Breathing, diaphragm, lungs, jaw, ribs, tongue, everything that is needed to produce music. And this work of the diaphragm, which very few people know about, is critical to all singing because it's the support of all the air you just took into your lungs. And it can continue a line almost indefinitely at times in great singers if they use it sparingly, but properly. So that's basically the first part. The second part is where we put all that aside. And we have to become, as much as possible, conscious of the inner being of the person on the right and left, and then expand that consciousness to the entire group, which is sometimes between 50 and 200 people. You think that would be impossible, and it seems impossible unless we open ourselves as instruments rather than as a new song to the divine, which has been done millions of times perfectly. So we open ourselves and we invoke the divine presence to come into this collective body, not necessarily each individual body, but the collective body, the oneness that Mother is seeking for all of us to experience. We have to throw out the ego, and I tell him, leave it at the door. We have to throw out the mind, because the mind cannot judge the music that is coming from a higher part. And we have to throw out shyness, because we're all the divine within. Somehow it works. I have a choir within 20 minutes that is superb. And I know it can only be done by the grace. Only. And when the Om begins, I ask for one note. and suddenly a note comes out of nowhere, and everyone is into that note. And some of them float different harmonies above that note. Other hold the bass, which is the support of the entire group, and a descent takes place. People begin to weep. They have experiences. They see the mother. They see Sri Aurobindo. I'm not going to judge anyone, but when I see someone in tears like that, I know it's pretty genuine. I may not have it myself, but I can feel it. And it's that feeling of the fact that we are all divine within, and just trying to tear the veils away that have prevent him from coming out in us. And I must say that for me, it is the new music coming down, perhaps in a very, I hate to use the word old way, but it's coming down in harmonies. And at times melodies, voices suddenly appear that are in the stratosphere, and then I'll hear a low Om. And it's just amazing what happens, because you don't know what's in each individual voice. Many of them have never sung before. So I wanted to share that part with you. Now, let's get back to something else, which I'd like to ask you about, and that is the Beethoven last quartets. I know you'll have a lot to say on that, and I love them, have loved them so much. The first one I heard, I think I told you, I was watching a movie, and at the end of the movie, the F major came in. And I was blown away, and I went to the projectionist and I said, "What is that?" And you can imagine in a huge theater with that sound system enveloping you with his late quartet. Please share whatever you like. Was it a new music? Was it a breakthrough into a new music?
Yeah, that I think we can say when we look at it from a music historical point of view of the development, such I mentioned in an earlier talk, where I say music naturally develops from the melody, from the pulsation, to more and more complicated, even complex things, melodies, and in its latest development into harmonies and more complex harmonies. This is a kind of logical evolution, much in the same way that Sri Aurobindo talks about logical evolution of mankind, right? That
in the ideal of human unity.
Yes, exactly.
Yes,
so there is, it's not like it can start from the monkey, then we go directly first to democracy, and then we develop monarchy. No, in no universe. It cannot develop like that.
No.
As long there is a development and evolution, it has to follow certain necessary steps. Within such a development, the late string quartets were not quartets that even Beethoven could have started with 20. He was a good composer at 20, but he could not have written those. He needs a lifetime of that development. Unless he would be a composer who brings down with great talent, much like Mozart, something that is there before. Then you can have, at Mozart's case, you can have violin concertos, five violin concertos he wrote in one go. They are all fantastic. We still love them. We still play them. He wrote them when he was 17. So, excuse me, When did he have the necessary time to develop this maturity? Not. So he is apparently able to bring down something, but something that is culturally there before. But that is different with the late string quartets. Something like in the late string quartets of Beethoven, there is no example before.
That's correct, yes.
And that's, even in this case, going so much forward that even after, nobody could actually do something similar. If you listen to other good composers, Janacek or you know, it's so many. Anyway, what's this Symphony of the New World? Dvorak, not Janacek. I wanted to say Dvorak.
Yes.
Dvorak's string quartets, nice, no problem.
Oh, beautiful.
Beautiful, but totally like 5 steps down from the late string quartets.
I mean, he takes from the black people the going home theme.
Yes.
Da, 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 da,
Yes.
which is lovely, but it's not new. It's not Beethoven at all. It's not the string quartet.
So we can say music historically, from the development of harmonies, melodies, etc., it was new, and it was very much, for another 100 years, it was new. After Beethoven.
Yes.
Some people say it would be taken up only by Bartók then in the string quartets, that the development is followed up. So that would be an extreme case, and yes, it's new. But I would be more interested to point out that the experience people can have by listening either to Dvorak or to Beethoven are much more subjective. And it should be good like that. We have to come to terms. You, for example, may, when you do the Om choir, you may experience what you described. But some people who may break out in tears do not break out in tears because they experience what you experience. Maybe they are reminded of childhood.
Or they're touched in some way that we can't explain.
On top of it, that's the most interesting stuff. Yes. And in terms of having 50 people singing something and feeling touched by this, oh my God, we are one body. Every Sunday they have that on the football field.
Oh, yes.
It's this experience. Thousands of people go up and say, we are one. Bayern, München.
Yeah.
And there's nothing bad about that. Although sometimes it's a bit scary.
It can be scary, yeah.
Yes.
But it is also a mass experience on a very vital level.
That is more interesting.
Football. So let's go into that.
So we see, very important for us to look into this thing is not only the group experience, which we would hope for when we read Human Unity. And we say, oh yeah, we have to develop in this direction. But not necessarily like in the Third Reich. That was also a mass and a group experience.
Yes, it was.
And the Kristallnacht, what a group experience. We kill them all. Yes. Oops. So we have to look from where is this coming. And this is, for example, not only coming from the vital. The vital is, of course, carrying the destruction. That is true. But this is coming very much from the mental.
Very much so.
A dim one maybe, but very mental. Like hate. It's not so much an emotion as more a thought process.
Agree.
So, therefore, it is more fruitful to train, and here I think of a hopefully new humanity, to a future humanity, to train the experience of the subjective and to train the respect for the subjective experience of another human being. And from this respect of the different subjectivities, we can extrapolate a kind of natural, not a moral, a natural automatic tolerance, which would then enable us to function as a mankind.
Yes.
Which would not be a mankind streamlined by laws or such mental constructs of patriotism, for example. So it's also a mental construct.
When Mother spoke to me, she spoke to me about other composers and the fact that they had brought down something here and something here and something here. Brought down. I take it in very small quantities. But when she talked to me about about the new music, it was totally different. Mm-hmm. She wasn't referring anymore to those composers.
Yes.
She knew them, she loved them,
yes.
She heard them in Paris, she was friends with many of them. But she knew that it was an older, I could say, descent or expression or formulation of the music that we love so much.
That is why after the 12-tone music, I think the most, what mankind tried a lot is go into the actual matter, the material of music. So you have composers like, almost you don't want to say composer to that anymore, or acoustic material researchers. Yeah, where you say, but how does that sound? And then you can make sound collage. That is, for example, an important means for this, because it goes more to the direct perception in the Buddhist sense or so, and therefore less into the specific cultural, emotional, conceptual realms. Those are dealt with the centuries before. What we want to now like to investigate is what is one sound. So here the Om comes in very logical, I would say. Yeah, although it's there before, and from singing Om is really not something new.
No, it was the creative force of the universe.
Exactly. So it's the opposite of new.
Right.
But to experience that everything is in there.
Yes.
We don't need a composer anymore.
No, and we don't need written music. Exactly.
No. Actually, it leads us away from that part of that part of the truth. Of course, we can joke. My favorite joke on that topic is a man with his wife sits in a little hut up a mountain in the forest, and he happens to play cello a lot of time every day. And his wife goes shopping and comes back and says, you know what I saw in the market? There was a poster. There is a man coming to town and he also plays cello. Shall we go there? And he says, nah, I'm not interested. She says, I will go there. She comes back so inspired. You know, he's playing. She says, I saw that man playing cello. Unbelievable. He was going like up and down and up and down, and he was going very soft, and he was going very loud. Fascinating. And the man, he's still searching. So, if we can come back to Sri Aurobindo here, we need all of that.
Yes.
We have to embrace all of that.
Mother speaks about this music of the spheres, which I heard once.
You did?
For maybe 2 seconds. Never heard anything as beautiful again. So there is so much more to descend, so much more to come down into this earth into the vibration of humanity.
But we both love Sri Aurobindo's poem, The Divine Hearing.
Yes.
So it is not the job of the rickshaw driver to honk, or of the engineer to make a machine with a reluctant drone. No, it's the person who hears that which will experience, in whatever it hears, the music of the spheres. So there is no composer who will bring down that music. I must, in this case, oppose Mother. It's like how can you charge a person with bringing down, or even a group of people, to bring down the new music? It's the way of listening, of hearing, that can be new. And that is the only thing that can be new.
So now I must ask you about your feelings about electronic music. we have so much to cover.
Yes, electronic music is also, like many love childs I have, I also like that. I bought my first synthesizer when I was 20, and it was a huge investment, and I loved it, fully analog. And then later I bought my first digital synthesizer. It was called a DX7, a Revolution. And I loved all that. And I worked with it quite a bit in terms of production and so on. But I also really learned a little bit how to program the sounds themselves. I know a little bit the basics. But all the while studying violin and, doing and learning guitar and wanting to be a drummer also, and the singing and the guitar playing with the band on stage, everything's so full. So in terms of that pantheon, the electronic production and music took only
small
space, small part, only one life. So I really love it. I do not also know so much about it. But one important thing I would like to share is that when you play something on an electronic instrument, any, it is repeating the sound production in a very precise way. Especially when we are talking about digital synthesizing, which is nowadays the norm. Then every time you give this information with a key, it will produce very exactly the same experience. You can see that on the computer when you stretch into the wave, it'll be the identical wave.
Whereas on a piano,
you cannot produce...
Which is a tempered instrument, you cannot produce that?
Not because of tempered, because of natural. Everything that is produced with actual atoms moving, a string, whatever, then you can try for all your life to play exactly the same mezzo forte A, and then you don't manage. They're only similar. So when you sit at the ocean and watch it, you don't get tired by the waves, because there is no loop. There is not one wave which is exactly the same as the previous one.
Yes.
It just doesn't exist. Nature cannot do that. Luckily, I would say.
Yes.
So the beauty of sitting at the ocean is the same as playing gong, 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 or singing it. It will be always different. And we cannot hear that consciously. But when we do that very same thing on the electronic sampler, gong, 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 we lose interest after a short while.
Because
it's exactly the same.
Identicality.
Yes. It's like you see that wonderful video of the ocean, 10 seconds, and then it starts again at 10 seconds. You not sit there for 2 hours, because sooner or later you see, it's that wave again, generally after the third time, if you really look at it. So it's this mechanical repetition that our consciousness automatically goes away. Which is also why we get advised by the great masters to not formalize things. especially in terms of spirituality, the point is that it is fresh every moment.
Yes.
And this is not just a moral requirement. It's because otherwise we go to sleep. And that's the opposite of conscious, in this,
Right.
colloquially speaking. Yeah? So in music, it's the same. We shall be in some way alert. Then we can play 1 hour of A minor. It'll be good. If we are alert, it transports it. Choir, this experience. Being alert there and sing it.
What?
So electronic music has this one problem, that creating this aliveness is very difficult, because the source material itself is not subject of the material irregularities.
Sometimes when you're watching a film and you hear this music, you say, wow, what a music. But it's background to the film itself, to the color, to the movement, to the acting, to the words. And you feel it. And then it moves nicely, and it keeps up the flow of the film, but there's nothing in it.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with the question of electronic music.
Oh.
You can have that problem with electronic music or with natural music, that nothing is in it.
Okay.
Otherwise, yes, I agree. For film music, even, I would often say, hopefully there's nothing in it, because otherwise I'm looking at the music and I don't see the film.
Ah, interesting. Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So when I do film music, I very much take care that I'm not taking the limelight.
Yes.
But I can do so with great aliveness also. So nowadays, if I produce music and I have to make a sound bed, which I would say here, not taking the limelight, there is this particular place when the situation cools down and there is peace.
But you did it in one of the recordings that I made with you.
Yes.
You made a musical
background,
or was it connection, or was it?
That's up to the artistical situation then. If I create music you talk about a poem you spoke.
Yeah, and the poem I spoke. Yes.
This is where I allow myself to fuse, to take half importance for the music and half importance for the recitation.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So I'm not putting a recitation and behind it a kind of tanpura, whatever kind. No, in this case, I investigated about the melody of your speaking. And you speak very melodious. So I was devising instruments playing the same melody to some extent. So that means I alienated your recitation and take a little bit, transport with this your recitation to something hopefully more than the recitation. In the same way, like you read the poem of Sri Aurobindo, but you emphasize certain things. So that means you take something other than Sri Aurobindo, which you think maybe he would have recited it like that also, but maybe not. This is you who recites it this way. And it's certainly not in the written poem. Right? Otherwise you have to...
You mean the inflection?
Yeah, all this. All of that. All that makes it alive.
Oh.
Otherwise you have to make it with a robot voice.
And I have been listening to this recently. My friend has had someone do Savitri with a robot voice. It is horrible, to me anyway. He says, oh, many people love it.
Literal robot voice, from the internet or what?
Yeah, but in English.
Yeah. Well, see, why I can understand it is Because when you recite Savitri, I have two things to process mainly. That is Sri Aurobindo and that is Narad. And some people take offense in the fact that you do it that way. So they would wish for somebody reads to them Sri Aurobindo, so it's only Sri Aurobindo. I would advise to them to read. And then
but it's an interesting point you make.
Then I would advise to them on top of it to understand that this is again not only Sri Aurobindo, but first of all, it's themselves who read it and have something inside, react on that, and this is what they see and often mistake for Sri Aurobindo. There is no such thing as Sri Aurobindo directly, purely talking to you. It's not possible. By the way we exist, by the way of our consciousness, I can see only, as Goethe once said in Faust, you, what would that be in English? Du gleichst dem Geist. You are similar. No, it's not good. How is that biblical thing that you are similar to God in the Bible? I don't know it in English. Anyway, in German he says, du gleichst dem Geist, den du begreifst, nicht mir. So you are same as the spirit that you understand, not me. Very powerful line in Faust.
Yes.
Quite in the beginning. So if we transport Sri Aurobindo, as we often do, to this great master, we should not think that we understand what he says. We should think that he makes us feel and think certain things.
Yes.
This is what we see. Therefore, I'm actually anyway obliged to listen to you as Narad reciting a text of Sri Aurobindo. I'm not hearing Sri Aurobindo when you speak. I'm hearing Narad, and that's okay. Because when I read Sri Aurobindo, I'm not seeing Sri Aurobindo either. I'm seeing me.
Interesting point.
That is what I say with the hopefully coming of a subjective age.
Yes, which is what he's speaking to us about, and Mother also.
Exactly.
That it is no longer the subjective age.
No, it's no longer the objective age.
Right.
The subjective age is coming.
Yes.
And that's strange because, especially raised still, you and me, in a certain scientific objective way, we think this is the achievement. Before was subjective, now we are objective. It's not like that.
No. This is a good point to end our 3-day session. I hope we will have more.
Yes, I'm available.
Namaste.
Thank you very much.
Namaste all.